evening, Ajax. Welcome and thank you for tuning into Live with Mayor Collier, Make It a Combo Night. My name is Devin, and I'm the Town Supervisor of Corporate Communications, and I am here to help host today's session. As we are connecting virtually, we appreciate your patience and understanding should we have any technical difficulties during the live program. We would like to assure you that there is a technical team working behind the scenes. If we do experience any issues, we will be back up and running on the same platform as soon as possible. Today, as the presentation and discussion takes place, we do encourage our audience to submit any questions for Mayor Collier in the comments section or via email at ajax.ca. Our social media team is behind the scenes, and they will be able to relay your live questions during the Q&A portion. If we're unable to get to all of your questions today, we will follow up with you and ensure you receive all the necessary information and resources. Now, I would like to turn it over to Mayor Collier.
Good evening. Welcome to everyone joining us for this next hour. Before I get into it, I want to give a shout out to my council colleagues who are watching as well this evening. We've got with us regional councillors Crawford, Lee, and Joanne Dyes, and local councillors Rob Tyler Morin, Con, and Bauer. Thank you for joining us this evening as well. We launched Live with the Mayor series in March 2019, and this will be the final installment. It's been a great way to stay connected with the community, support my goal of communicating with the residents of Ajax as often as possible. And I want to thank everybody who's here tonight and those who have joined us for past events for participating, asking questions, and making it such a success. If this is your first time joining us, Live with the Mayor is an opportunity for you to ask questions about the town. Please submit them through the live event in the comment section or whichever platform you're joining us from, or by emailing corporate@ajax.ca as early as possible so our moderators can see them and add them to the queue. Before I start, I don't know if there's any Survivor fans out there, but as many of you may already be aware, Survivor Season 42 finished last Wednesday. And on behalf of Ajax Council and the town of whole, I'd like to give a huge congratulations to local Ajax resident Marianne Oketch, who won Survivor Series 42. Marianne is the second Canadian in a row to win Survivor. And it's a pretty huge accomplishment, really puts Ajax on the map globally. So Marianne, very well done. It was such a pleasure to watch. Next, I'd like to address the serious weather event on May 21st, and I'm sure we'll get some questions about this tonight. This was an unprecedented storm. It caused damage even worse than the 2013 ice storm. And I know the power outage was incredibly challenging for many. Our local utility, Alexicon Corporation, was able to get the lights back on for many fairly quickly, but others it was several days. And some of the challenges include the fact that we weren't the first hit. There were some other municipalities like Uxbridge that were hit much harder. And by the time the storm came through, resources were already being gobbled up by some other areas, including a shortage of poles, parts, repair materials, and workers for both tree cleanup and line repair. Alexicon's initial priority was to get the hospitals, long-term care homes, and water treatment centers up and running, then tackle the main feeder lines. And as we all know, this is not a typical storm, but we're committed to learning from this event. We're going to be requesting through a motion this month, inviting a full report back from Alexicon on lessons learned and hopefully a plan moving forward if this happens again. The town's operation crews are still very hard at work conducting cleanup. If you're aware of damaged municipal trees, please email a description of the issue, associated address, and photo to ajax.ca. Emails will be assessed and prioritized by town forestry staff. Last week, the town began collecting and chipping branches and limbs left bundled on boulevards, but this process could take several weeks to complete due to volume, so please be patient. And I want to thank the utility crews who worked so hard to get everything back online. Also, our operations teams who helped clean up the carnage left by downed trees, and the residents who checked up on their neighbors and lent a hand in the cleanup. Thank you to everybody. On a serious note, Ukraine relief efforts continue, and if you would like to volunteer, donate, or offer other types of support, please visit ajax.ca/Ukraine to learn how. Now, I'd like to share a quick overview of the incredible investments we've seen in our community over this term of council. From the start of the term to the end of this year, we expect construction value in the town of Ajax to top $1 billion. That's B, billion. and approximately $38 million has been collected through development charges over this term to date. All of this new development means a brighter future for our community and our residents. It means new jobs, new forms of entertainment, and new business partnerships and opportunities. And we're so proud of our incredible planning and development team. Over the course of this term, they've seen nearly 9,000 applications submitted for development, and building and engineering have issued more than 4,500 approvals and permits and collected more than $12 million in applicable fees. We all know that development is about more than just the structures going up, but it's about creating opportunities. And through this term, we've created about 3,400 jobs so far, and thousands more are on the horizon thanks to several exciting projects underway and breaking ground fairly soon. This includes Swedish clothing company H&M, who are opening a 716,000 square foot industrial building this fall. The million square foot Amazon facility has already hired 1,800 people. And both these projects are located in the GTA East Industrial Park at the corner of Roslyn and Salem. And when all these three buildings on that site are complete, business here will employ close to 2,200 people and contribute $2 million of property taxes annually. And that's just one site. There's many in Ajax under development. We've also made some good use of MZOs, Minister Zoning Orders, and the town has been able to advance several important projects, including two crucial long-term care projects. Of course, the 320-bed Lakeridge Gardens at the Ajax Pickering Hospital recently opened its doors and just 13 months after construction began. This is the first long-term care home developed under Ontario's Accelerated Build pilot program. We also have Schlegel Village's 192-bed long-term care home and 320-unit retirement home, which will be constructed on the east side of Harwood Avenue, north of Roslyn Road. Next to Schlegel Village project is the future site of the new Grandview Children's Center. The town of Ajax donated 5 acres of land to this project in 2015, and after years of hard work from the dedicated Grandview team and partnership from all levels of government, Grandview held a ceremonial groundbreaking earlier this spring. And finally, to segue into the rest of the presentation this evening, a reminder that the town is open for business. All facilities are open for walk-ins without appointment. The bookings are available and are booking up quickly. Our recreation and fitness facilities are open, and we're back to our significant events being in person. I encourage you to get out into our community, support COVID recovery, and see what Ajax has to offer. I just wanted to go over some of the important summer events that are coming up that are on your screen. I'll touch base on a couple of them. On the Durham Pride Parade, happening on June 5th, starts at 1 p.m. It's going to start at Falby Court and ends at Arbor Park, which is by Town Hall. The post-Pride celebrations begin at 1:30 and will include live entertainment, food and beverage vendors, and community booths. Expected to end about 5 p.m. I also want to talk about the meet and greet with the HMS Ajax and River Plate Veterans Association members. They'll be arriving about the middle of June, and on June the 19th, we'll be holding from 2 to 4 p.m. at Town Hall a meet and greet for everybody to come out and meet these folks who are going to be traveling here from England. We're going to have a couple of days of street dedication ceremonies. As many of you are probably aware, our streets are named after the veterans that served on the ships of the HMS Ajax, Achilles, and Exeter during the historic Battle of the River Plate. We're also going to be doing non-community events for the veterans, including the Ajax Mayor's Gala, Indigenous Community and Healing Garden tree planting on June 25th, and a parade ceremony and reception of the Royal Canadian Legion on June 25th. So please come out and help support our veterans. And I also want to discuss quickly Trail Fest and the new Bike for Bones event taking place on June the 26th. The Bike for Bones event is in support of our Ajax Pickering Hospital. There's more information available at ajax.ca/town events for more information. Please come out and get involved in the community. Also, some few other special events: Music in the Square, Kids in the Square, Seniors Wellness, Cultural Days, and the Spirit Walk are going to continue as well. Again, ajax.ca/town events. St. Francis Center is opening up again with the season launch after being closed for 2 years for in-person performances and events. Upcoming shows and ticket purchases are available at stfranciscenter.ca. Some of the hot topics we've had going on, it's been a very busy term, even despite COVID. We, at the start of each term of council, set out as a council and put together a strategic plan. This is sort of where we are, what our priorities are, where we need to be, and what we need to do step by step to reach those goals. I'm very proud to report that 123 out of the 126 actions that council put in place at the start of this term are 98% initiated and complete after the first 3 and a bit years. We did have, as I said, over 100. It was a very aggressive strategic plan, and thank you to our staff for their assistance. We've come a long way and got a lot of things done this term. We also, in keeping with our strategic plan, started the Community Indigenous and Healing Garden in association with the Ajax Pickering Hospital. It's put together through our town staff and the hospital. It was majority funded through the Ajax Mayor's Gala and the generosity of our local business community. Brings together a lot of the different points in our strategic plan from a community and inclusion perspective. The Recreation and Parks Master Plan is recently completed, and I just want to give a bit of an update on some of those things. The Recreation and Parks Master Plan guides investment and priorities for recreation and parks to the year 2031. This is the guiding document that we look at when we are putting together what we need as far as expansion of recreation and different events to meet the needs of our community. It went through a full public process, took many years to complete, and is an amazing document that's going to guide us well. At the region of Durham, we are working through the Envision Durham exercise and planning for growth at the province's direction out to year 2051. That's been something that happens every 5 to 10 years, the Municipal Comprehensive Review, and helps us plan growth for the region, both residential and commercial. We're going to be looking at some different forms of transportation, like electric kick scooters and things like that. And of course, coming up on June the 28th is the 4th annual Ajax Mayor's Gala. So again, it's been through the generosity of our sponsors, we've been able to do some great work in our community. We've so far put about $450,000 in the first 3 years towards several of our homeless initiatives, helping those are most vulnerable in our community. There were a lot of our charities that were really affected by COVID and weren't able to maintain. And without the generosity of our sponsors, we'd not be able to do that. This year is going to be even bigger and better. We're returning to an in-person event and really looking forward to that on June the 18th. As far as ways to engage the public, next slide, please. In my opinion, the IMO page is a great opportunity. And whenever we have different things going on where we need to reach out to the public, we'll do this through IMO. It's a great opportunity to get information and help us make proper informed decisions. Of course, we have our AppJax mobile app where you can report graffiti, garbage, litter, any problems around town. Please also follow us on our social media channels on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And of course, our committees and boards at ajax.ca/en inside town hall committees and boards. Lots of ways to find out information on what's happening in our town. Also, if you just want regular updates, the Inside Ajax e-news at corporate@ajax.ca is a subscription which will keep you updated on regular events, comes right to your inbox, and a great tool to let you know exactly what's going on. We also have our community page, news and public notices posted on ajax.ca/news, and of course, as I said, our social media feeds. Finally, I want to pose a couple of questions to help out. So if you read through these, what's your favorite town-led event from the last 4 years? How many times have you left feedback on IMO Hub? And which municipal initiatives are you most? Please give us your answers or ask your questions. These are some important issues that we want to hear from you on, and you can put those through corporate@ajax.ca. And that wraps up my intro. Turn it back over to Devin for some questions.
Thank you, Mayor Collier, for sharing all of the great ways that residents, businesses, community groups can all get involved in the excellent town programming we have this summer. So we will now begin the Q&A portion of this evening's session. We have been getting quite a few questions and comments already coming in from online. And Mayor Collier, I know you touched on this in your greetings at the beginning. However, we have received quite a few comments and questions throughout a little bit more about the storm. So we have a couple of residents who are looking for a little bit more of an update on when all of the downed trees should be cleaned up, when yard waste will be picked up, and then also about a lexicon not providing accurate information on their website regarding power restoration, or not answering the phone over the weekend. Would you be able to elaborate a little bit more?
Absolutely, and great question. And I'm glad we're leading off with this because this is top of mind for many people. Um, excuse me. As I said in my intro, this storm was unprecedented. It was one of the biggest storms we've seen in many, many years. And unfortunately, with climate change and global warming, probably the first of many to come. This follows on the significant snow that we had ago, which was the largest storm we've had in 40 years. And these types of significant snow events or significant weather events may become more the norm, which is unfortunate, but just is factual. To this event, it was severe. So much damage happened so quickly. The Alexicon team was on the ground right away and restoring power. Obviously, given the devastation, they had to prioritize service, as I said in my intro, starting with the hospitals, seniors' homes, those areas. And also in some areas, like the Pickering Beach neighborhood, along Pickering Beach Road, as well as down where I grew up on the Gregory, Albury, Bryant area off Clover Ridge, the damage was so significant. There was entire lines of poles broken and down. And those obviously were going to take a much longer time. The first thing a lexicon did was, I think we had 60 odd poles that were broken. And we, of course, didn't have that many in stock. So we had to start ordering them. And I think those arrived on Tuesday. But understand that everybody was ordering them. This happened across a huge area, and everybody was clamoring for resources. They had to prioritize. If there was areas where they could do quick fixes, they went ahead and did those first and got as much power on for as many people as they could, as efficiently as possible. And then once they got those done, then they had to start working on the really significantly damaged areas that took a much longer amount of time. We were up to about 98% power restored by Friday evening. There were that pocket on Albury and Bryant and a bit of Clover Ridge that again, trying to access these older established homes that were built in the late 60s that back onto each other with large mature trees, swimming pools, fences. We can't get trucks in there. It's very hard to get crews in there and fix those poles. And it obviously took a much longer amount of time. And that was very unfortunate for people in those areas. My parents live on that street. Trust me, I heard about it quite a bit from them and from many other residents on those streets as well. It was a very trying time, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain the situation. To our town cleanup. Oh, and I will also acknowledge we realized that the outage map, just like the snowplow tracker map that we had on the town site during the big snowstorm, failed. It just was not updated as quickly as it could have been. These are one of the things that I will be bringing forward and discussing at the debrief with the lexicon and asking how we can do things better going forward because residents were looking to that for information. If the information wasn't um, accurate, it's not helpful. I spent several hours driving all around those neighborhoods, and I could actually see houses on one side of the street with lights on and street lights, and houses on the other side of the street without power, different parts of the grid. And on the outage map, it would show they had power. So if you lived on that street, you would notice, obviously, but it was because the grid was fed different grids on each side that caused some confusion. But regardless, I think there is some room for improvement there, and those are some of the things we're going to discuss. There'll be a motion coming at our next council meeting requesting a lexicon to come to our council and give us a full debrief on things that can be done better and a plan going forward. To the cleanup, again, as the lexicon had to prioritize for restoring power, our staff had to prioritize for the cleanup. It's just such an immense amount. We need to make sure, first of all, the roads were opened, and we got that done very quickly. I know down on Range Road, Lake uh, Durham 23 was closed because the poles were all down. We had to go move the barricades to open range so they could access from the back. So we had to find out areas like that very quickly and get those important access is open in case there was any emergency needs. So they were obviously first, get the trees cut and out of the way that are blocking roads and blocking important infrastructure so people are safe. Now that all that stuff is done and we're doing the cleanup, we're going to get all the brush and everything off of the boulevards first. And you'll notice our parks along Harwood Avenue, other areas where some of our boulevard trees are damaged, are going to stay like that for a little bit until we get all the other cleanup done. Once that cleanup is done, then we'll go back and get some of the trees down in the parks and things that are not good to look at right now, but really are not causing any harm and can wait for a little bit longer. Again, I thank you for your patience. It has been a real extreme and something we've just had to work through. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Mayor Collier, while you were providing that very detailed answer, we did have a follow-up question come in from Nicole. And she was wondering, what is the best way for residents to help out the town workers that are chipping branches? Should residents be bundling them with a string, putting them in a bag, cardboard box? Is there a way that's easiest?
Good question. I think some may be picked up with the yard waste pickup, and that's another topic that I'm sure we'll get questions on. So I might as well just tackle that. Um, we've been experiencing a number of labor shortages, both at the town and the region, whether it comes to our grass cutting, whether it comes to our garbage pickup at the region, whether it comes to our yard waste bags. And as we've had to do in other areas, we've had to prioritize. We've had to pull some of our people off of our grass cutting crews and put them on the cleanup efforts for the trees. I would say that just stacking them neatly by the curb and we'll be bringing the chippers by is probably the best way. I I'm guessing, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking having them tied up or in a box probably would not be helpful in that case because it would get in the way of just throwing it in the chipper. So just stack them neatly by the road. We'll deal with it as we can. To the yard waste pickup, again, thanks for everybody's patience. But what the region's been doing is getting the garbage and recycling, because those are the priority. Animals are going to get into and rip apart. Those are the ones that are going to blow all over the place. And then they've been coming back on the weekends to pick up the yard waste bags. Not every weekend. There has been some where the shortage has been so extreme they've had to do it throughout the next week as well. It's just clearly a staffing issue. Trying to get all these positions filled has been a real challenge since COVID. I don't know if people have chosen not to go back to work yet, or if they've taken other jobs, or what is happening. But it's a universal type thing across all the municipalities, trying to get people to fill our positions so we can reopen and get all our services back up to the level that we had before COVID. So that would be my best guess at what to do with that yard waste and leaf debris or tree debris.
Perfect. Thank you. And on a little bit of a different note now, we have a question coming in from John. And John's wondering, Durham Region Council agreed to bulldoze 9,300 acres of farmland for development. Where does Ajax Council stand on this?
I've been pretty vocal on this one. I was very disappointed. That was a marathon 12-hour meeting last Wednesday. I understand on May the 3rd at the planning meeting, which I also attended, which was also very long, when a councillor from Whitby brought forward the amendment to the staff supported scenario 4. And Ajax Council came out and supported scenario 5 right off the bat because in absence of any of the options being chosen from the Carruthers watershed plan by the region of Durham, in absence of anybody giving us any direction on what sort of precautions are going to be put into place on a number of different things, we made the decision, as well as the recommendation of our staff, to support scenario 5, which was no urban settlement area expansion. What that means is make better use of the lands that we already have. The lands that we already have serviced, we need to increase density and have higher and better use. That means less single family detached homes and more higher density stacked townhomes, mid-rise, things like that. We need a variety of housing choices. Our young people today, new grads, seniors looking to downsize, don't have options of condos and those type of other housing sources and are leaving Ajax. People that are working in our new Amazons and those sorts of things, I can't speak for all of them, but I think it would probably be difficult to afford some of the $1.5 million single family detached homes we have. However, $600,000 condo or so would be much more affordable in that situation. My kids, for instance, are going to have a very hard time getting into the market. So we need more of those high density. And when that was brought forward at the region, scenario 4 by staff, the amendment was to go with the scenario 2A. Scenario 2A was a much lower density scenario, more single family detached homes and much less high density um, options inventory. It passed at the planning on a 5-3 vote, which is only one away from failure. A 4-4 tie, and it would have failed. I understand that decision. I wasn't happy with it, but I understood it because it was based on the information they had at the day. The scenario 2A was a scenario put forward by the Build lobby group for the development industry, BILD, and it was embraced by the planning department. They overruled the staff recommendation. Now, what happened next was very interesting. At the May 25th regional council meeting, the 12-hour meeting, I've never seen this before. It's unprecedented in my time here, but regional planning staff put out an 18-page supplementary report countering the planning committee's recommendation of scenario 2A and recommending scenario 4. It highlighted things like scenario 2A doesn't conform to the growth plan of Ontario. It doesn't conform to the Planning Act. It doesn't take into account several decisions that regional council has already made with regards to conversion applications, with regards to our environmental climate change reduction initiatives, with a lot of our transit initiatives. It goes right in the face of all those. And this 18-page report spoke very clearly to that. It also spoke to the fact that the build scenario was out the land, and 61% of the lands that they were saying were needed for the next 30 years were still going to be vacant in 30 years. So it was allocating way too much land as well as double counting and inflating the figures. All this was clearly pointed out by regional staff who still recommended scenario 4. We also had 17 delegations that day. 15 of them recommended scenario 4 or scenario 5 and opposed scenario 2A. The only two that supported it was Build and one other associate of one of the businesses. And then there was over 100 pieces of correspondence that was included in the agenda. So 100 people took the time to write letters opposing scenario 2A. And finally, thousands of residents from across the province sent emails to all of regional council supporting scenario 4 and scenario 5. So I moved an amendment that we go with scenario 4. It lost on a vote of 17 to 10. The scenario 2A passed on a vote of 16 to 11. And that is what we have now. That's the recommendation that's going to go to the province. I certainly hope the province, as the approving body, will overturn it and send it back because it doesn't conform with the growth plan. It doesn't meet the growth targets and the densities as set out in the growth plan of Ontario. Very simple. So that's where we are on that. Uh-oh, my lights went out. There we go. Got to move more. I hope that answers your question. It was a very frustrating day. And to quote my friend, Mayor Ryan from Pickering, it was what was the quote on that? Reckless and irresponsible, in my opinion, which is what he said to us about scenario 5.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. And we'll move on to a little bit of a different type of question. So Ruth asks, she says, on a lighter note, what's with the parody accounts on social media? I have noticed on Twitter, however, I am sure they are on other platforms as well. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery, although the misinformation is just so odd. Any comments?
Well, the parody page has been around since after the last election, and it was quite funny actually. So we just I look at it from time to time. I don't spend a lot of time on social media, but it's quite funny. There is a new one, and I don't have a lot of time for bullies or cowards. And whoever is operating that one is both. Hiding behind an anonymous social media platform, pretending to be me and speaking to residents. I mean, if you have something to say to me, I'm right here. I'm very accessible. Call me. If you have the guts, call me. But going behind a social media platform and pretending to be me is kind of pathetic. So I guess that's what I think about that. It's there's so many other options. Maybe you have too much time in your hands. I don't know, but I think there's more productive things that we can be doing with our time. So social media is good for us putting out information, but that kind of stuff, I don't see much time for it. I don't have much time for it.
Thank you. And so this one is a little bit timely right now with the provincial election happening. Frank is wondering, will there be greater penalties for illegally placed commercial signs and political signs? Some corners are just eyesores and a good start to airborne litter in Goodwind.
I agree. We brought forward our sign bylaw for just that reason, and I've had comments even as recent as today from actually one of the candidates' camps about how it's so refreshing coming into Ajax because it's not completely littered with sign pollution during the election. It's refreshing. We made that decision as a council early on in the term. The region changed their own regional sign bylaw to comply with ours because we had a different set of rules for regional roads and a different set of rules for local roads. And it was very confusing for us as well and for everybody involved. As to some of the candidates, I think there is an orientation session for candidates at the start of each election, and we definitely give them the information on what the rules are. And they know that we don't allow signs on any boulevards, only on private property, yet some choose to break the rules. Our bylaw staff will collect these signs, and they will, if the candidate wants them, they will be charged, I don't know what it is, $5 a sign or something. There will be a fee for them to get it back, which covers our staff's costs for having to go out and pick them up. Same with the real estate signs and that. I know it wasn't popular when we did it, but there was just no way for us to police this effectively. There's no way for us to say, okay, you can have 10 signs. Who's going to go out and drive around the town for hours and count the 10 signs for each agent or each candidate? Or it's just impossible. So it's just something we had to just say, no, we're not doing it. Signs don't vote. This affects me just like it affects everybody else, right? I have to get out and knock on doors just like everybody else in the election to get the word out. That's what you have to do. It's called campaigning. I know one of the candidates is running on saying we've overstepped our bounds and wants to challenge that. It's been challenged before, and that's your right. But that is our bylaw here in Ajax. And if you choose to run here as a candidate, that's our rules.
Thank you. We do have quite a few questions coming in from numerous different channels. And I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We have a new resident to Ajax, Sharon, and she's wondering if all of the areas at the waterfront are free parking for residents.
First, welcome, Sharon. Welcome to Ajax. Hope you enjoyed here. Yes, for Ajax residents, we do not charge for parking. We, as a council, discussed parking permitting system for some time, but we didn't act on it. And then when COVID came, and everybody wanted to get outdoors, and we have our amazing 7 kilometers of publicly owned waterfront, we were inundated with people coming from all over, not all over Ontario, but definitely the GTA and all over Durham, which is great. Happy to have you, glad to have you. Unfortunately, though, we had significant increases in our costs for security, in our costs for litter cleanup, maintenance, and we had some pretty major parking issues because we had people parking all over the place and also in all the in-streets that go all along Lake Driveway and the waterfront. So we had to do something about it. It was not right, in my opinion, to have the costs that we incurred for people coming to visit here downloaded onto our own residents through our taxes. So we initiated this paid parking permitting system where you can go online, and it was $20, park all day. You get a ticket, you register online, and it's a paperless thing, and it generated quite a bit of revenue, and it really solved our problem. And we had regulated parking. We stopped having all the complaints for the neighbors that all lived down there that had people parking in front of their driveways. It really was a bit of a ridiculous thing where what some of the complaints I heard, and it worked. Now, like everything, we don't get it perfect the first time. So at the end of last year, we had a debrief. What did we do right? What could we improve? And we brought forward to let me just grab my note here to modify the system a little bit to allow instead of a $20 full day, a $10 3-hour parking, which some people felt it was a bit much. So we listened and we came out with a $10 3-hour parking permit or $20 all day. And we also, for the residents who live down there that may be having a party and maybe having, we didn't want them to have to pay for their guests to pay to park on the street. So we issue free on-street parking permits for those households to give to their guests on a request basis so they can park there as well. But residents, you go online to our town website, you register your vehicle and your license plate, and you can park down there with no cost.
Perfect. Thank you. And another one that's a little bit more of a fun one. April's wondering, why is the HMS, Ajax, and River Plate Veterans Association coming to Ajax this June?
Well, as I mentioned in my opening, I'm very proud of our military background and the history of the town of Ajax. All of our streets, as I said, are named after the veterans that served on the ships, and it's only appropriate that when we are doing all these street naming ceremonies, we have almost a dozen, I believe, streets that we're going to be doing street dedications on. That if some of these veterans are still alive, that they be here. These. So when I attended the 80th anniversary of the Battle of the River Plate in Montevideo, Uruguay in 2019, I met a lot of these veterans of the HMS Ajax River Plate Association, and they've had a great relationship with Ajax and Ajax Council for decades. A lot they were here for the 60th anniversary, the 70th anniversary, and it's only appropriate that they come and we kind of celebrate this with these street namings. We're able to do a lot of them as the town grows. We're slowly exhausting our list of names, and to sort of commemorate them being here for this special occasion this year, I've invited them to the gala, so they'll be our guests there. And we are doing as I said, a number of different events throughout the week: street naming ceremonies, the meet and greet, parades, barbecue, and a number of other things, just to celebrate Ajax and our heritage and our history.
Wonderful, thank you. And just as a quick reminder for everyone, if residents are interested in meeting the veterans, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, there is a public opportunity on Sunday, June 19th in the afternoon. There will be entertainment, some sweet treats, and it should be an excellent afternoon. So our next question is coming from Ruth, and she's asking if you can elaborate, please, on the initiative for the motion directing staff to schedule the homelessness awareness training session. What is the nature of the request and objective?
Oh, this was a motion that was brought forward by Councillors Bauer and I think Dyes, who initiated our homelessness task force. CDCD is operating that now. We do have a homelessness issue in our town at the plaza across the road, mostly. And part of our education is learning how to deal with this, because I don't know anything about homelessness or being homeless, thankfully, fortunately. And in order to be able to deal with the situation, I think we need to have that information so we can know how to deal with it properly. So we had that tent that was on Harwood for about a month there that a lot of residents reached out to me, and I didn't realize it was as complicated as it was to do something about that and to get that person the resources they needed and to get them moved out of there. So I supported when they brought forward this homelessness training, because it is something that I think is important for us to know as a council. The training is scheduled for July the 5th, and I think it's a 2 or 3 hour session, and it will update us on the situation, what's being done, what resources are available, and that type of thing. This is just, I guess, part 6 in our. We've already had 5 parts of our diversity training, where we've been educated on a lot of different issues with regards to diversity. Now we're going to segue into the homelessness side and be educated on that as well. Helps us do our jobs better.
Thank you. And we have another question coming in from social media from Jay Ramsey. And they are wondering, what is the town doing with the free money it has received from OLG? The last reported figure was $95 million. So why isn't the money being used to take pressure off of the taxpayer? What are the town's plans for 2026 when we lose the license to operate the casino?
Oh, well, thank you for that question. Very relevant. And the quick answer is we are. We are using it to take the pressure off the taxpayers. And I'll tell you exactly why. But first, I'll address the question about closing in 2026. Not public yet, but I'm very confident that it will not be closing in 2026 and that the lease will be extended for another 12 years. And I'll leave that right there. But to the revenues, and my background is accounting, so I was very comfortable with the way that the council chose to do this in 2005 when the casino opened and we started receiving these revenues. If we took the slots revenues and just used it to decrease the tax base, sure, the residents might get a percent decrease, which was $10 a year for the average. Like it's not a big amount. But if we ever had something like COVID and the slots closed and we lost that revenue, now all of a sudden we've got to increase taxes by the amount that we've lost. And some other municipalities in the region of Durham to our west, that's exactly what they do. They use it for operating. We use those slots revenues for capital. And what that means is when we build the Audley Rec Center, for instance, and it's a $23 million phase 1 of the Audley Rec Center, or sorry, a $32 million, my mistake, phase 1 of the Audley Rec Center. If we had to go borrow $32 million and then repay that over 15 to 20 years, like your mortgage, we're paying a lot of interest on that borrowing, and there's a carrying cost. So if we borrowed $32 million, we might have a carrying cost of a couple of $1 million a year. On the operating side, we would have to increase taxes to pay that. What we did was we took those slots revenues, we put them in our capital reserve, and we used those to reduce debt. So instead of borrowing $32 million to do phase 1 of the Audley Rec Center, we borrowed 12. That $20 million that we didn't have to borrow means $2 to $3 million a year in carrying charges that we don't have to put on the backs of the taxpayers. So what I'm saying is we back-ended it. So instead of giving an upfront reduction that we may have to modify later if the situation changes, like it did during COVID, we back-ended it to reduce having to accumulate debt and reduce the carrying charges, which in effect resulted in a 1% per year tax increase that we did not have to make. And that's per year for the last 17 years. So I hope that answers the question. It's just it's an accounting way of doing it where we're sort of ensuring that we don't get caught in a bad situation when an unforeseen circumstances arises. And when they closed for 2 years and our slots revenues, or when Durham Live opened and our slots revenues reduced, we did not have to make up that difference on the back of the taxpayers, which I would suggest would be harder for people to carry during times of COVID and people struggling. And that was through the foresight of us doing it the way that we did it.
Thank
Did
you.
that answer your question?
I think it was a very detailed response. We'll see if there's any follow-ups to that. And just as a quick reminder for everyone, we are nearing 8 p.m. We have time for a few more questions. And if we don't get to every single question, we will be following up. And as always, you can always stay connected with Mayor Collier through email or phone or on his social media. It is all publicly available on how to connect. And our
You can text
next question is coming from Frank. And Frank says, day one after the upcoming provincial election, what should our new local MPs benefiting Ajax?
Well, that's a great question. Let me think about that for a second. Because first of all, I voted. If you haven't voted, please get out to the advanced polls or make sure that you get out on June the 2nd. It's very important that you exercise your democratic right and vote for the candidate of your choice. Otherwise, you forfeit the opportunity to complain. That's I think, well, first of all, before the election, I took the time to meet with the candidates that would meet with me. I met with 4 of them. And we discussed what they felt were important um, issues that they want to bring to the table. And then we discussed what I felt were important issues on behalf of the town of Ajax. And I tried to educate them a little bit on some of the things that we're dealing with. And what I think, I don't know what they will do, but what I will probably do is one, reach out and congratulate both the winners and the losers, because it takes a great deal of effort to get out and put your name forward and get out to the doors, and it can be a bit abusive sometimes, and it's hard. So I will congratulate them, win or lose, but at the same time, I will hopefully set up an appointment with the successful candidate to discuss these and what their plan is moving forward. And hopefully we can work together. I've always worked with all levels of government to try and move Ajax issues forward and maintain good relationships. So I will. I can't speak to what the candidates themselves will do, though. I know that might not be the best answer.
So it looks like we have time for about 2 more questions. And we have one coming in from Leah about the Indigenous Community and Healing Garden. And she's wondering how she could volunteer at the garden.
Oh, that's a great question. We helped fund it through the gala, and we've been pretty actively involved throughout. Our staff worked with the hospital through the planning process and to get everything working. We worked with Kim Wheatley, the elder who came in and did the blessing, everything else, and the consultant that did the design. Moving forward, though, I would think that it's going to be the hospital operating that going forward. And I'm thinking Tracy Patterson would be the right person. Sorry if you're watching, Tracy, put you on the spot. But what we'll do is I will reach out to her and find out exactly who the right person is. And I'll make sure that, Devin, do you have the person's contact information? We'll make sure we get that to them, exactly who, and put them in touch. Always great to have people volunteer. If you haven't been by to have a look at it, the planting is happening. They've been doing a lot of work on there. It's very, very impressive. It's a lot bigger than we thought it would be. And apparently it's going to produce a lot of food, a lot more food than we thought, which we're working with groups like Salvation Army and that with to hopefully help some of our other issues that we have in our town. It's been a great project. Really enjoyed working on that one so far. And we'll be glad to have you come out and help.
Wonderful. And I know last time I said we have time for 2 more questions, but I think we can fit in 2 more quick ones after that. And so we have another one from Ruth, and she's wondering, when will in-person council meetings be resuming?
They will resume in the new year, I believe, or probably when we get sworn. Well, when the successful candidates get sworn in December. We've experienced some challenges, the supply chain issues. We were successful 2 years ago in getting grant funding from our upper levels of government to redo our council chamber and bring everything up into make it accessible in all different ways. Upgrade, like we used to have the Rogers feed, which if you didn't have Rogers, you couldn't watch. Make everything live streamed, make sure everything, and we're going to no longer be holding our meetings in the River Plate room. We're going to be holding all our committee meetings in council chambers as well. So we got that funding to do the complete revamp. And of course, through COVID and the supply chain, we all know electronics became a little bit hard to come by. So because of the supply chain issues, we've not been able to resume in-person council meetings just now. So we made the decision, especially given the upcoming municipal election, lame duck periods, there won't be a lot of meetings anyway, to just rather than be promising a date and maybe have to extend it and keep kicking it down the road, we'll just decide that do them this term, and then we're going to start them again next term. That way we know we'll have the infrastructure in place. It'll be perfect. It'll be ready to go. And those successful candidates can hit the ground running next term.
Thank you. And I think this is a fitting last question for you. We did touch on it, very quickly there, but we do have Michelle asking, Mayor Collier, could you please advise on your availability and the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I just saw on the bottom, I don't know if you want to put it up again, but all my contact information, I just saw scoot across the bottom there. So the first number there, that's my cell phone. So if you call, I do answer that, or you can text me at that number. My email address is there. If I don't stay on top of it, I get 100 emails a day. If I don't stay on top of it, I get buried. So I'm very good. I'm very quick at getting to those and getting back to people. If I can't, I will respond and say I'll be back to you shortly, and I'll be reaching out to staff and get that information. The social media accounts are probably not the best way to reach me because I don't really look at social media. Those are staff driven, those are corporate communications, so that's mostly outgoing, but they will do their best to answer questions if you ask them. But the best way to reach me is by phone or by email. I'm taking in-person meetings again, so I have no problem if you have issues you need to discuss. If they're local or regional issues, I ask that you reach out to your local or regional councillor. They are also available at just like me with their phone numbers and emails and social media, and their information is available at ajax.ca on the town website. But anything that they're not able to help you with, by all means, reach out to me and I'll do my best. If it requires a meeting in person or a Zoom meeting or whatever it is, no problem.
Perfect. And so just before I turn it back over to you, Mayor Collier, for your closing remarks before we end here this evening, I just wanted to give a quick thank you to everyone who was able to join us this evening. As a reminder, there will be a recording of this evening's session immediately following. It will be available on ajax.ca/mth, ajax.ca/livestream, on our YouTube channel, on our Twitter account, and on our Facebook. Thank you to everyone, and I'll turn it back over to Mayor Collier to finish off our evening.
Thank you. Sorry, just let me get organized for a second here. I just wanted to grab this sheet with the upcoming events because there are some very, very good ones here. I will be at most of them. And I'm hoping that you will join us as well and come out as we reopen. It's great to see people out and involved in the community. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. I hope to see you out at all these great events this summer. As always, I'm available by phone or email anytime. I will just reiterate, please be kind and supportive and patient with our staff as we complete the cleanup and continue with our challenges as far as staffing, as far as garbage collection, and some of the services we provide. As I mentioned, we are having to reallocate some staff. So yes, you may see a couple extra days that being cut while they're out picking up trees and limbs and doing the other stuff. We will get to it, and I do thank you in advance for your patience. To everyone, appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you very much, and have a great night.